I was forced to kill someone while hiking in Yellowstone National Park. I, um, I know what it sounds like. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it happened, and I still cannot wrap my head around it to this day. I'm still scared that someone is going to come looking for me, or that I'm going to get in trouble. Let me start off by saying I wasn't doing any ordinary hike. I'm a photographer by trade, and make most of my money by taking professional shots of anything that I can, and then selling them on to companies as stock images and licensing them, or so that they can license them to other people for a hefty fee. I wouldn't say it pays well, but it had been my dream since I was in high school to make money by taking pictures, and I guess I just didn't want to leave the only job I ever had where I could actually make that a reality. I had a big-ass hiking backpack with me that day, with all of my equipment inside of it. Some really expensive stuff, too. I'm talking tons of different lenses with different focal lengths, my tripod, my camera, and some other stuff that I needed. Just to give you an idea, my camera alone cost me around $5,000, and that's not even to mention any of my other equipment. The plan was to take various pictures of nature and see if I could snap some unique photos of some of the birds that lived in the national park. Failing that, I was very interested in snapping some photographs of the hot springs that I had heard so much about in Yellowstone. I wasn't an idiot. I knew it was illegal to go hot potting and bathe in them, but nevertheless, I wanted to get some shots of the springs, and who knows, maybe I could find a willing participant for just a few seconds. If that didn't come to fruition, the plan was to set up my camera on a tripod and a timer and hope that I got a good shot. I would blur my face, obviously, so that I wasn't admitting publicly that I broke the law. The hike out there was not much to write home about. It was a really hot day, and combined with having to lug my equipment up some of the steep trails with barely any places to get real traction on my feet and to keep myself from slipping, it was really making me struggle. I was sweating before I even got near the hot spring. I didn't really notice any people hiking around, but I suppose it is a big place. I did notice one dude lingering by the trailhead that was near the car park. He was wearing a full hooded sweater that was black, and he had it closed pretty tightly around his face, like he had pulled the strings really tight. He seemed to just stand there, and he occasionally pulled out his phone, but it was still locked, so I could tell that he was not using it. It was pretty odd, but it wasn't really my business. Once I got to the hot spring, I shed my t-shirt because the heat was just unbearable. It was like I was hit by a wall of heat, and honestly, I was starting to regret coming here at all. I had pretty much decided in my head that bathing in the hot spring for one measly photograph was a silly idea. Still, I needed other shots too. There is like this boardwalk thing designated for walking around these hot springs with little mini railings to stop you falling in. I mean, you can get closer, but I'm pretty sure you can also get fined for that. Lucky for me, there was no one around, and so I took this chance to get much closer to the hot spring and set up all of my camera equipment. I was in awe at the hot spring, but I can't lie and say that I did not feel weird and intimidated. The entire area absolutely stank of rotten eggs and some kind of a chemical smell. It was really pungent and thick in the air, and just breathing in the air, it felt really heavy. I kept getting this sharp stinging in my nose and like a sharp shock on my nose hairs whenever I got a little too close to the hot spring and breathed in. It felt like I was chewing on a battery or something. I got some beautiful shots of the place. The hot spring was crystal clear in some parts of it, and you could see right to the bottom and see all of the chalky grey rocks and stuff. Some parts of this hot spring though were quite murky and had these dark clouds almost billowing around and blocking your vision. It was a nice contrast for a photo, and I had fun. Every so often, I would shit my pants when I would hear a loud hiss of steam bubbling up to the surface, but other than that, everything just went fine. I set up my tripod to just look at the crystal clear part of the lake, and I set up a timer on it. I fiddled with the settings for around an hour to get the picture perfect, although this was more me stalling for time than anything else. I was still debating inside my own head whether I should get in for the photo or not. I was really torn and fighting against myself. Well, this back and forth for a while in my head distracted me, and I guess I didn't notice until I turned back around that there was a man standing in the tree line. I say standing, but he was actually crouched quite low to the ground. He was making no effort to conceal himself beyond this. It was the exact same man that I saw previously at the foot of the trail. He was still wearing that gigantic hooded sweater with it covering most of his face. He had one hand reaching into his pocket, clutching something that I could not see, and his other hand was being used to type a message on his phone, is what it looked like to me from my perspective. I was instantly overcome with shock, and I really did not know what to do. I tried to give a friendly wave to break the tension and make myself feel better, but he never responded. I tried to quickly gather my equipment in my bag, but my camera was still up on the tripod with the timer ready to go at the click of a button. Before I could even finish, this man came rushing out of the tree line out into the open and screamed at me to stop fucking moving. He had pulled his hand out of his pocket and was now brandishing a knife in my direction. It wasn't some small little tactical knife either. This thing was massive and more like a machete in size. I just put my hands up instinctively and begged him to let me go, and that I did not want any trouble at all. He told me to shut up and listen. He told me he wanted my bag with all of my stuff inside. I tried to lie and tell him it was a load of old junk not worth anything, but once again, he told me to shut up, and he waved the knife around in front of him like a crazy person with no control at all. I honestly don't really know what came over me. I wasn't really thinking straight, and the anxiety and the adrenaline running through me made me have this horrible sick feeling inside of my stomach. And before I'd even realized what I had done, I had already told him no. I was just as shocked as he was. I couldn't even believe I had said it. I wasn't even thinking about it. He got really, really angry. He yanked his hood down now on his sweater and showed his face to me, and he screamed, "No, I will fucking gut you if you do not toss the bag here right now." He had this massive scraggly beard that had bits of grey in it. His face had all sorts of scars, and he looked like someone who had been sleeping rough for half of their life. I just sort of stood there and did not say anything, and without a second's hesitation, he just rushed at me. I was just an idiot. I was frozen to the spot, and he rushed at me. Once he got a few inches away from me, my body just reacted on its own. I didn't even feel in conscious control anymore. The entire fight, if you can even call it that, only probably lasted 20 seconds at most. He kind of flailed the knife at me in my direction, and I instinctively put my hands up, and I felt a searing pain in my palm. I managed to grab him slightly, and he ended up losing his footing, since this part of the trail was not a boardwalk and was not very stable at all. He ended up coming down on top of me with all of his weight. Again, I am still on autopilot and full of adrenaline. He swings the knife down at me wildly, and I don't know if he missed or what, but it ends up lodged in my forearm, and as he starts to pull it back out, I just try to shift my weight as much as I possibly can, since he was pulling the knife and trying to stand back up. None of it was conscious thought at all or planned out. I guess I threw him off balance because he wrested the knife from my skin, but also stumbled and he landed in the hot spring. I was in pain and bleeding quite heavily from my arm, and I did not have anything with me to stop the bleeding. I was going to just go running, but for some reason, some part of me was focused on not leaving my equipment behind, which sounds utterly ridiculous, but I just was not thinking. I knew within seconds, before I could even make a choice, that something was horribly wrong. I saw the splash in the water. I heard some kind of a click, but it did not register fully in my brain what it was. I saw the bits of steam bubbling to the surface, and then I saw the man fully appear from the water, screaming and begging me for help. He screamed at me to help him out of the water, and after that, his breath became sharp and he stopped talking. I saw his eyes go unnaturally wide, and he looked scared for his life. I could not even comprehend what I was seeing right in front of me. The skin on his face, around his eyes, it was already peeling away in large clumps and blistering in other places. His sweater had multiple holes inside of it, and where I could see his skin, I could see it was this bright red color, and that pieces of the material had almost fused to his skin, and the skin looked really badly burned. Even beyond this, the skin on his body was just peeling and peeling away. It looked as if he was melting. I remember him screaming that he couldn't see, but by that point, his voice did not sound the same anymore. It sounded like someone had punctured his lungs multiple times, and like his vocal cords were covered in tar. His voice sounded so raspy, and like it was painful to get any of the words out of his mouth. After that, there was just nothing. His body just bobbed up and down, with his eyes completely wide open, just looking as if they were staring at me. But the eyes were not entirely there anymore. His skin just melted more and more, and I could not even look, and eventually, his body was below the water, and I could not see it anymore past all of the murky water. I was still bleeding. While watching all of this unfold, I almost forgot that I was bleeding somehow, despite the horrible burning sensation. I was scared that I was going to bleed to death, scared I was going to prison for murder. I know it sounds silly now, but in the moment, I thought that I had to cover everything and just run, that the police would judge me as a criminal. I clearly was not thinking straight at all. I grabbed my shirt off of the ground, which I had already taken off earlier, and I did my best to cover up my arm and stop the bleeding. There were a few drops of blood on the ground that I tried desperately to wipe away with the fabric of my pants, but I could not get rid of it. I grabbed my camera and packed it into my bag, and I fled to my car. The whole time, I tried to run through denser parts of the park, just in case someone had been walking by the trail. I thought that if someone saw me, the police would be able to arrest me and pin me to the crime. I drove to the hospital. I wanted to go home and hide, but I knew I could not treat myself properly, and I was scared I could lose my arm or worse. I lied to the nurses, and I told them that I had a horrible accident while woodworking. I just came up with some bullshit on the spot. I'm not sure if they fully believed me, but I was eventually treated and given stitches. They would not let me go home until a day or so afterwards. I wish that was it, but I saw a news report maybe a week or so after it happened. I don't know all of the details, but I know the police found some evidence that someone had fallen into the acidic pool. That is what they said, that some poor soul had mistaken an acidic pool as a hot spring and lost their life. I think they said at the time they were treating the case as a tragic accident rather than any foul play. I can't remember half of the details from the news report. I just remember obsessing over the newspaper article again and again for the longest time, rereading it over and over, and trying to find out whether they would know it was me, or if they could find me somehow. Trying to think in my head if they maybe secretly had some evidence that they were hiding, and that they were going to show up at my door in the middle of the night. That never did happen, thankfully. But there is something else I cannot stop obsessing over. Something I can't stop coming back to again and again. I don't know how. Maybe in the commotion, or maybe my camera was just that sensitive. Maybe I accidentally clicked the button just before the man came out from the trees, but the timer on it went off. It actually snapped a photograph. You can't see me or the man in the photograph. All you can see is a splash in the acidic pool where the man went in and the pool itself. For the longest time, I've kept it to myself because I was convinced it would somehow prove what I did. But I am sharing it here now because I can't keep it to myself anymore. I wanted to delete the thing and just get rid of it forever, but I couldn't. No matter what I tried, I just could not stop looking at the photo. The photo of someone's last moments on Earth, right as I killed them. I can't sleep at night, and I can't live with myself. Please, someone help me. My childhood experience with shadow people. I had a spooky experience that I finally want some insight on. Okay, so, when I was around 8 to 10 years of age, I lived in the middle of the forest in Virginia. It was autumn when this happened, the time of the year where it starts getting dark much earlier. I was playing at a neighbor/friend's house. It was roughly a 10-minute walk away from my place. I spent all day playing, doing whatever bullshit you do for fun as a kid. Twilight comes around 5:30, so it's getting dark, but it's not dark. It's just when the shadows start to come out and get long. You know what I mean. As I leave their house and start to walk down the road into the forest road to my home, my friend comes running outside to tell me something. I stop and wait for him. I am like 25 to 35 feet away from the tree line, so 9 meters. He stops me to start telling me about something completely unrelated. As we're talking, he notices something in the forest and just trails off mid-sentence, and he says, "Dude, do you see that?" I'm like, "What?" So I turn around and look into the forest, and I'm like, "Dude, what is that?" I see it. It's a shadow person. I was completely unaware of the phenomenon of shadow people, but it looked like a human figure in the color of a pitch black shadow, standing upright. Keep in mind, the lighting is very important. It's 5:30 in autumn, it's dim outside, it's twilight, but it is not dark. This thing stands out unmistakably. This pitch black, contrasting with the dim, yet rather well-lit tree line. It looks like it's making a motion with its arms, akin to shooting a bow and arrow at us. I'm in a trance. I'm not scared, but I'm just fascinated. I ask my friend, "It looks like a shadow, but it's moving." My friend says, "Yeah, it looks like he's shooting an arrow." We both independently observe that it appears to be moving and shooting a bow and arrow, so I know that I did not imagine it. We stare at it together in a trance, just fascinated and confused. Maybe a minute passes by where we continue staring, and we notice that there is more than one of these figures. There are 2, 3, 5, maybe 7 to 8 of the things are there. They are all making that bow and arrow shooting motion. While fascinated and a bit creeped out, we are not idiots. We rationalize to ourselves the obvious Occam's razor explanation. We're just imagining it. It's a trick of the light, and we are affirming and fueling each other's imaginations. Still, that shit is weird, we both say. And out of nowhere, my friend's dog runs up to us at full speed. His fucking dog just stands in front of us protectively, between us and the shadow figures. His dog is now staring right at them. His tail is fully stiff, twitching. His hair is upright. It's just barking its head off. My friend and I turn and look at each other dead in the eye. A surge of adrenaline just hits me out of nowhere like a shot of crystal meth. We instantly turn and sprint to his house. We slam the door shut behind us and start screaming and freaking out, shouting at each other, asking what the hell that was. The fact that the dog saw those things and reacted with horror made it even more terrifying. I call my dad and tell him what happened. I beg him to come and pick me up in the car. He assumes I am just bullshitting, but I am begging him almost with tears in my eyes to pick me up so I don't have to walk home and possibly see those things again. He very reluctantly agrees. My dad picks me up and drives me home, so I've got a happy ending there, but it gets worse for my friend. My dad had just bought me a new expensive bike. The forecast was calling for heavy rain that night. I'd left the bike outside at my friend's house, leaning on a tree near the house, about 10 feet away from the tree line where we saw the shadow people approximately. My dad demands that the bike gets put away so that it does not rust in the rain. I call my friend and ask him to go and get my bike and put it inside. He's like, "Are you fucking serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, sorry bro, but my dad is really mad about that bike." My friend is still horrified to go outside, but reluctantly agrees, on the grounds that I stay on a call with him the whole entire time. I agree and say okay. He goes outside. I hear him say, "Shit, there they are. They're closer and bigger. Before they looked like 6 feet tall. Now it looks like 8 to 9 feet tall and much closer to the house." My friend continues on outside. He does not talk. I just hear heavy breathing as he runs to grab my bike and take it inside. I hear nothing but his frantic labor breathing for 45 seconds as he retrieves my bike. Finally, I hear him say, "I got your bike inside, you asshole." "Thanks, bro." And then the call ends. That is pretty much it. I had some other weird shit happen on this property, but that's the big one. For reference, I live on an extremely old property that natives lived on around 400 plus years ago. We came to the conclusion that it was some kind of angry native spirits. I actually live in this exact house right now today that my friend lived in back then. I have not seen those things since that day, but it still creeps me out to think about. What do you think? Does the dog seeing the same thing mean it's legit? Are shadow people real? Okay, so I don't know how to explain this one, but it was such a bizarre feeling. One day, I'm outside with my friend. We're in a part of town that we've never been to before. I call into a newsagent to get a drink. We are both leaving, and this girl comes inside. She looks at us and really shyly says hello, and then just walks past. I'm thinking, hey, I know this girl. I can't remember her name or where I know her from, but for some reason, I just feel really happy to see her. It'll be awkward, but I need to know where I know her from, so I will have to ask. I feel compelled to leave instead. Me and my friend start walking to the car in silence. My friend asked me if I saw her. I say I did. He asked me if I knew her face from somewhere. I was going to ask him the same thing. Apparently he does. He just doesn't know from where, and he asked me if I remember her name. I tell him I don't. He thinks that she might have hung out with us when we were like 14 or something. It sounds familiar. I'm confident he's cracked the case. It can't be though, because me and him never met until we were in our 20s, and we hung around different areas and different people when we were 14. We decide the best thing to do is wait for her to come out of the shop and ask her, but she just does not come back outside. I won't get into the logistics, but it will be borderline impossible to miss her walking outside. It gets to the point where we purposely hang out there for months, waiting to see her again, and we just never do. This was about 12 years ago, and every so often my friend mentions it and asks if I know who it was yet. Even stranger is that, despite her looking so familiar to both of us, neither one of us can describe any single feature of her face now. The feeling was like when you're waiting for someone and you aren't sure if they will show. When they do, it's like whatever was missing had been found. My friend had the exact same elated feeling and was not sure why. We've been through all of the old photos of ourselves when we were out with friends, and she is not in any of them. We can't ask any of the others if they remember her, because how do you describe someone when you don't know what they look like and don't know anything about them? Okay, so this happened to me some months ago, around November time-ish. My ex-girlfriend has this ability to see ghosts and spirits and demons. Don't ask. Her house is a mess. It's 2 floors. Her bedroom always feels sketchy, like that kind of feeling that you get that tells you that you should not be somewhere. She says an imaginary friend is guarding her. I'm like, lol, okay, whatever. Eventually, we were watching movies in the living room. It's 2 in the morning, and we both fell asleep on the couch. I started dreaming some weird shit, like being chased in the house. Like, I saw her and her family, with like, their faces turned upside down, and her eyes and mouth are reversed. After that, I have one last dream, but this one felt really different now. I was outside the house. The place was abandoned in my dream, so of course I walk inside the house. There was this big fat kind of shadow with purple eyes looking straight forward at me. This big shadow man attacks me, but for reasons that I don't remember. I don't feel any type of being afraid. I felt angry instead. So somehow, I grab it from its head and neck. I violently start smashing his head against the floor until it just stops moving. I start going full berserk mode and started eating him alive. What have I done? I wake up, freaking out. My girlfriend is crying. I ask her what the fuck happened. She says she heard like someone was stepping on the floor violently and saw me punch the floor while I was laughing. Suddenly, her sister screamed and cried for help. She runs to the second floor. Meanwhile, I check the clock. It's around 3:30 in the morning now. Eventually she comes back and told me that her sister was dreaming about me killing some ghost. Oh shit. I asked her how the ghost looked. Big fat shadow with purple eyes. We all had the same dream. She is pale and asked me what I was dreaming about while punching the concrete. I described the exact same thing and she started to cry. She told me it was her imaginary friend who always protected her. I'm like, okay. I stand up, take a soda, and I get the hell out of that house. We never talk about it anymore. After that, 3 weeks passed by and she broke up with me, and I started having more nightmares of being chased, and being alone felt uncomfortable. Okay, so when this happened, I was out for a bicycle ride with my best friend. We were both in our mid-teens, maybe 14 years old or so. We decided to take a really long path just because. It's 20 miles of bicycling, totaling around 40, because we also gotta get back home. At the end of the path is a big supermarket. The way there is a little rougher than we expected. The store ends up closing before we even get there. We decide to bike around the neighborhood since we've never been there before. It's out of the city, kind of rural. I'm feeling really exhausted, dreading the way back home. I feel something really weird click inside of my brain, and I start getting this really strong feeling of euphoria instead. I later learn that this is called runner's high. While feeling this weird high, I also start feeling strange emotions and fixations. I get this incredibly strong urge to take a certain path in the neighborhood. On an intersection turning right, it feels like I'm killing a puppy. I get this horrible feeling of guilt, like I've done something horribly wrong, and I can feel my eyes start to well up. When I turn left at the next intersection, the feeling just disappears, and I feel this like divine pleasure. I follow the positive strange urges, while my friend just followed along behind me. I think he was a little bit freaked out. He wasn't really saying all that much. At the end of a short path, I feel an impossibly strong pull to walk into this overgrown field. I get off of the bike. I take 2 steps into the weeds. There's an old lady there, passed out, face first in the dirt. I go up to her and wake her up. She's alive but moaning in pain and just talking incoherently. I call 911. They pick her up and leave. The strong urges finally go away. I bike back home, a little bit shell-shocked. It actually happened again, another time. I was a little bit older this time. I started jogging for exercise. It's midwinter, late in the evening. It's freezing cold outside. I go on a long run in the cold. I start feeling the runner's high again. I get the urges to follow a certain path again. I run maybe half a mile, following these urges. The road leads to a cul-de-sac. There are some really run-down houses. One of the houses has a porch. There was a little boy sleeping on the porch without a jacket on. I checked up on the kid. He was shaking so badly he could not even talk. I gave him my jacket. He warmed up a little and finally came to. He apparently got locked outside and nobody is home. He was pretty close to freezing to death. I called 911 and the situation eventually got resolved.